volume is the number of cubic units needed to fill a space. The formula for the volume of rectangular prisms is length times width times height. So you're multiplying the three dimensions. Now the unit of measure that we use for volume is what we call, is in the definition, it says cubic units. The 3 behind the unit of measure, that little exponent, represents cubic, three-dimensional cubic unit. So it could be cubic centimeters, it could be cubic inches, cubic yards, whatever unit of measure, you would use a 3 as your exponent to show that it is cubic units. Now, to find the volume of a three-dimensional figure, or of a rectangular prism, you would multiply its length times its width times its height. So as we see here in some examples from the book, the length and the width would be 1 times 8, which is 8, times the height of this rectangular prism, which is 3, would give us 24 cubic millimeters. We're simply multiplying length times width times height. Same thing for the next example, number 5. We multiply its length times its width, which would give us the area of the base of this rectangular prism. 10 times 4 is 40. We would multiply 40 times the height of the prism, which is 4. 40 times 4 would give us 160 cubic centimeters as the volume of that rectangular prism. Another example here has a base with a length and a width of 5 by 6. 5 times 6 is 30. And we multiply 30 times the height of the prism, which is 5. 30 times 5 would give us 150 cubic feet. Now when multiplying the three dimensions, remember you don't have to multiply length times width times height in that order. You can multiply any three of the dimensions first because of commutative properties. So you feel free, as whatever makes the multiplication easier for you, to mix them as you need. Now we're going to look at some a little bit more involved rectangular prisms. Rectangular prisms, but it's a combination of rectangular prisms in these examples. So what we're looking at here in this figure, when it asks us to find the volume of the composite figure. Composite figure means there's more than one thing. It's composed of more than one piece. In this case, it's more than one rectangular prism. So when we're looking at this first example, we can see they've kind of helped us a little bit and put this dotted line in here to show us this is where one of the rectangular prisms can be separated from the other. So if we look at this bottom rectangular prism first, this one here, and we want to find its volume, we take its length and its width, 8 times 4 is 32, multiply it times the height of this just bottom rectangular prism. We're not looking at this top one at the moment. 8 times 4 times 2 would give us 64 cubic inches for the volume of this bottom rectangular prism. Now we're looking at this rectangular prism. And here we can see it has a width of 2 inches. And we can tell that this side right here is 5 inches from this top piece to this bottom piece. Well, we know if we look over here that this is 2 inches, just like this side. These are 2 inches. So that means this piece is 2 inches. So if this piece is 2, what would this one have to be to make a total of 5? Well, 3. 2 plus 3 would give us 5. So 5 was the length of this entire height. 2 was the height of the bottom prism. We knew that from this piece of information over here. We can translate it to here. And 2 plus 3 gives us 5, so we know the height of this prism on top would have to be 3. So we now have its width, we have its height, we still need its length. Well, if we look, what we know again about rectangular prisms, that this face, or this edge, is 4 inches, so that means on the other side of this prism, it would be 4 inches. So that means this is 4 inches across here. So we can tell that's 4 based on the width of this prism here, because this equals this, and this equals this. Okay? I'll show you with a different color just to make sure. If this is 4, then we know this edge is 4. If this edge is 4, then we know that this distance also has to be 4 inches. So we're going to be multiplying the 3, which is the height, times the width, times the length. So 2 times 4 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24. So the volume of this rectangular prism is 24 cubic inches. So now, to find the total volume, we would have to take the 24 cubic inches of this top prism plus the 64 inches of the bottom prism and add those together to get a total of 88 cubic inches for the volume of the entire figure. That takes a little more work than the last example, so let's take a look at something like that again. We're looking at number 2. They didn't draw any dotted lines for us to show us where to separate it, but I think you can tell if we cut it here, we would have one rectangular prism here and one rectangular prism there. So let's break this apart. If we're taking this bigger prism in the back, and we're not looking at this front one for a moment, we're looking at this one, and we know it has a length and a width and a height of 7 times 1 times 6, which would give us 42 cubic centimeters as the volume for this back rectangular prism. On this front prism, we see that it has a length of 3, a width of 2, so we're missing its height this time. Well, if the height of this prism is 1 centimeter, then the height of this prism has to be 1 centimeter as well because it's the same height as this larger prism in the back. So we multiply 1 times 2 times, 1 times 2 times 3, and we get 6 cubic centimeters for the volume of this smaller front rectangular prism. So to get the total of the entire figure, we would add 42 plus 6, which would give us 48 cubic centimeters. Let's look at another example. We'll look at this one down here. We can see if we cut the prisms apart right here, we would have 2 of them. If we look at the prism on the left, the larger one, its 3 dimensions are listed for us. So we would multiply its length times its width times its height. So 3 times 6 is 18 times 2 would give us 36 cubic centimeters for the volume of that prism. And when we come to this prism, we know it has a length of 4 and a width of 2. Its height isn't given to us, but if the height of this prism was 2, we notice the height of this one is the same, so that would mean it is also 2 feet. So we would multiply 4 times 2 times 2, which would give us 16 cubic feet. And I'm noticing, sorry, I put the wrong unit of measure on this one. Fix that really quickly. This should be cubic feet there. So the volume of this larger prism was 36 cubic feet. The volume of this smaller prism on the right side was 16 cubic feet. So to get the total, we would add 36 plus 16 to give us a total of 52 cubic feet as the volume for that prism.